I'm David Phillips, the CEO of Estate Planning Specialist, and I will be your host today for what we believe is going to be a very important discussion, primarily about the big, beautiful bill and the impact that it's going to have on retirement planning, on estate planning, and basically planning for the future. So, this big, beautiful bill, if it ends up being passed by the House and the Senate in its current context, it's going to have some significant impact on your estate. And so I brought together today the four co authors of a newsletter, the Generational Wealth Strategies. And first, I'd like to introduce Melody Gatz. Melody is the director of Legacy Global Foundation. So, Melody, tell us a little bit about you and how you fit into this.
As stated, I'm one of the main writers for Generational Wealth Strategies, the newsletters, and I'm the president of Legacy Global Foundation and Legacy Global Programs and a number of other philanthropic organizations. My background is primarily in philanthropic and impact-oriented finance and structuring and compliance. My group helps work with both other donor advised funds. We have an in-house donor advised fund. We do fiscal sponsorship. We incubate new charitable organizations and programs. We work a lot in terms of acting as a consultant with other groups for facilitating, dealing with intergenerational giving, which is one of my core passions, and working with alternative assets or multinational charitable transactions. It's a rather unique space. A lot of charities need these pieces, but it's difficult to have that expertise in-house, which is where we're often working with a wide variety of groups to help get philanthropic or impact-oriented capital, even on the for-profit side, to the right place. And as I stated, part of what I'm personally passionate about here is the multi-generational impact that money has both on families and in the for-profit or philanthropic sectors.
Terrific. Thank you, Melody. And then we're also joined by Rick, and Rick Durfee is the founder, senior partner of the Durfee Law Group. And Rick, tell us a little bit about you and your expertise. And we're excited about your new book that's about ready to come out. So maybe just tell us a little bit about that too.
Yeah, I've been practicing law. Thank you, by the way. I've been practicing law since the 80s. So I'm almost as old as you, Dave.
No.
Sorry. And we represent clients all over the U.S. for estate planning and tax planning and asset protection and related things. And had a lot of experience working with families and now seeing the consequences of planning that people did decades ago and how it unfolds in their families. And it's kind of shaped my perspective on what it means to leave wealth to the next generation. And it's not always a good thing. Often it's a very destructive thing. And then trying to come up with strategies to disrupt that. And so that's an integral part of our law practice. If we avoid probate and avoid estate taxes that mess up the family and their money in the process, we haven't really made the world a better place. So trying to, on the one hand, pass wealth on the other hand, do it in a way that's helpful. And that my book, Trust Issues, here's the cover, coming out any day now. The subtitle is Why Traditional Estate Planning is Broken, how it's failing us, and what to do about it. Because there are things people can do. So again, we represent people all over the U.S. dealing with those kind of issues. And interestingly enough, if you do effective estate planning, you're also doing effective asset protection, and you're also doing effective tax planning. So they kind of, and retirement planning, they kind of go hand in glove. And on that basis, I've worked with both you and Todd here for a number of years. And so, Todd, tell us how we work together and what you bring to the table.
Yeah, I think I've been working with you since 1995. So that shows how long I've been doing this to some degree. Long time. Kind of grew up in the financial planning industry with Dad. I was helping him file back in high school in 1988, working on this. So it's been a while. I handle primarily the safe money aspects for our clientele, which is focusing on less risk and preserving assets so that they our clients have assets that they can pass to the next generation. So how can we keep the wealth that we have, making smart decisions, taking advantage of opportunities that come up, like the high interest rates that we have right now. Also having tools in place like long-term care, insurance, using life insurance, using tax avoidance strategies to help maintain wealth, assets that aren't at risk in the market. And I write about those in my column.
Well, terrific. And, I've known all of you. I've known Todd probably the longest. But the uh, the important thing is that we all collectively work with clients throughout the United States, and our newsletter. Um, just a little bit of history on the newsletter on generational wealth strategies. This is what it looks like, and the we each do a column. Mine is strengthening your roots, and I know Todd's a Safe Money Corner. With your new book coming out, Trust Issues, we've had the opportunity to work with clients all over the United States. And we've seen just a number of different types of strategies in place. We have also helped create a number of strategies all throughout the country. So our clients are all over. And they're, in fact, in my situation, I know it's not your situation, Rick and Melody, but in our situation, only 2% of our clients are in Arizona. So,
Yeah, we're close to that. It's probably more 50-50. Most of our clients are outside of Arizona.
yeah.
And to your point, though, this newsletter, one of the awesome things about it is we have this multidisciplinary approach, looking at the same problem from different perspectives and bringing different tools to bear. Really makes it a powerful contribution to the ideas and the issues and challenges faced in transferring money.
And the way the Generational Strategies newsletter came about, I'll just give a little brief history to our listeners today. We had just finished a conference. It was at Freedom Fest a couple of years ago, and the CEO of Salem Eagle came up to me and said, "I heard you speak, and we would like to do a newsletter on generational wealth strategies and or generational wealth." I knew that I couldn't do it by myself, so I brought in the three experts that I not only trust the most, but I also love your work and everything that you guys all do. So, well, let's talk for a second before we get into the big beautiful bill and kind of try to pick this thing apart and see what impact it's going to have on all of us. Let's just talk for a second, and Rick, I'll ask you first. What do you think the biggest financial and legal mistake that you are seeing right now in the states?
So, thank you for the question. I like that question. I see a lot of people, most people have done something. And often they think that because they've done something, they've done enough. But what we see is what the something is often disjointed, fractured. They've talked with different people, but their advisors are not coordinating with each other. They don't know each other. They're not talking to each other. And so they have these disjointed pieces, sometimes working at odds. Sometimes the financial piece and the legal piece are inconsistent, or the tax reporting and the estate documents are not aligned. And so thinking you're done, and thinking that if you've worked with multiple different advisors that it's all going to work together, and it's not. So the plan has to be what we call integrated, so that all the pieces fit together, and it has to be complete. And candidly, planning is not an event; it's a process. It's something you do continually. So it's not, oh, I have a binder in my closet, something we did 17 years ago, and now I'm done. Uh, that's just not it. You got to keep going and do more.
And as you have life changes, you new grandchildren come into the scene. You have marriages, you have divorces. Uh, Things have to change, and it has to be fluid. It can't just be stagnant. You can't just, like you said, put it in the shelf and then hide it. Todd, what are you seeing? What are the biggest mistakes that you're seeing right now?
Um, I think not having a plan. I think also maybe I think people are a little too risky for what's going on in the environment in the market. I'm seeing 85, 90-year-olds that are 100% in the market, and a big calamity or crash that could happen could wipe out a huge estate. So I see a lot of that. And then I think tax planning, just not taking the proper tax measures, or it's very common to see 6 million, $7 million IRAs that are going to be passed to the next generation. And they're like, well, what do I do now? And that's a huge tax bomb that they've been deferring.
And they don't,
That's pretty
and
common.
yeah, most of them don't even realize that's going to be a tax bomb. And with
They
the
did a great job of saving.
with the Secure Act that passed in 2020, that ignites the bomb even more and creates more taxes. So
Well, and usually the people that have those big IRAs have other stuff. And they don't even recognize that not only is there an income tax consequence, often there's an estate tax consequence. So it can be compounded taxes, one tax piling on top of another. And there's charitable solutions and legal solutions and investment solutions. We see a lot of people that have the ones that are successful. I kind of like to talk about the success as much as the screw ups that people do. But one of the successes we see is from the legal side, just looking over the shoulder of the investments, is when people have investments that are not correlated to the market. They're not vulnerable to those swings up and down. They're steady as a rock. They keep rocking and rolling. And I know that you provide some of those, and so that's uncorrelated assets as part of the mix, and then having, of course, those properly owned in the legal and tax structures.
yeah, and I think there's a one of the authors of a newsletter called Forecasting Strategies, or actually the author, Mark Skousen. You know, he's endorsed all four of us. He said just the other day, now's the time to take some chips off the table. In other words, take some of this risk element away. We just had a glimpse of it, with the tariff thing that Trump instituted.
That was a big
I mean,
hiccup.
it scared the daylights out of investors. It scared the daylights out of President Trump, I believe. I don't think that he would, I honestly don't know that he anticipated how drastically that was going to change the market.
Well,
And we could kind of see 401ks rapidly becoming 201ks, just
well,
it
and
overnight.
but the panic sellers who sold at the bottom and then it rebounded so quickly, it was kind of instructive. Sometimes, hold on, don't jump off the boat yet. It's going to be okay.
Yeah,
I want to jump in here
sure.
to the question that you asked and build on what both Rick and Todd commented on. I think even when part of what I've often seen is even when you do get the plan entirely perfect, you get the investments aligned and correlated with what the market's doing, you update for changes in life, it's integrated. At the end of the day, the thing that will mess up and destroy the best of financial and legal plans is the people involved.
Yeah.
It's the beneficiaries deciding to sue each other. It's the
Yes.
trustees running off and not being accountable,
We
or
just talked about that before, about Jimmy
Yeah.
Buffett in his
Yes.
situation, a
No kidding.
$375 million estate
Yeah.
that's
it's
going through.
dysfunction within the family, dysfunction within the company, personal dysfunction that even if you get all of the other pieces right, will eat through the estate, eat through the money, destroy the value that's been built faster than anything else. And so, in line with getting the tax and legal and retirement and financial pieces in place, it's really, really vital to make sure that whoever the next generation is coming in, whoever will be left behind after a death, whoever will be taking over management or responsibility in some way, and even those who are not responsible, those who are involved and beneficiaries, are prepared. Even if they don't know everything they're taking over, they are prepared to work together well.
So I want to comment, especially because of your involvement in philanthropy and charitable giving. Robert Kiyosaki points out that, well, if you give to charity, your ability to produce income goes up. And we see that big time in estate planning. Families that have a culture in their family of charitable giving. They not only send the check, they send the people, and the people volunteer and contribute to the community. The next generation is better prepared to handle the money. They're less likely to fight about it, and they just have a greater innate capacity to create more wealth. So they're not dependent upon what they inherited. They can go out and build their own, so that charitable component in the plan is more crucial than people think. It's not just a lovely add-on. If you have enough money, you can afford to give some away.
We work with a lot of families on that to help them involve the next generation in the charitable component as a stepping stone to being involved in the business or estate in general, because you do have to learn how to work with a custodian of the funds. You have to work within a framework of rules, similar to working within the guidelines of a well-drafted trust within an estate plan. And when there's a set purpose, it teaches some of these basic building blocks that prevent dysfunction.
And and today, I mean, I remember just 20 years ago or so, we had a common client that came here. We actually met in your office. The whole family was there. Remember, they were doing a family vacation in February in Arizona. They were from the north, and so it was cold and snowy and what. And they came here and did a family vacation, and they did all the signing and Grandpa, who's in his 90s now, explained everything to the kids, to the grandkids. And we do that now on Zoom.
Yeah,
And it is so cool.
it is
We
cool.
don't have to get them all together. We do everybody on Zoom, and they're all together. It is absolutely the best way, Melody. I appreciate that.
I just did such a meeting, and one of the clients was in Taiwan, actually, and another one was on the East Coast, and one was on the West Coast. And we were here,
Sure.
and this whole big extended family around the world, and we were meeting together to
Yeah,
address
exactly.
these
Well,
very issues.
let's kind of switch gears just a little bit. When President Trump was president in his first term, he immediately, almost day one, started working on the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, and that was passed. And he kind of set a caveat in there. He kind of threw a carrot out to everybody because he knew he was getting a lot of pressure from the other side to not do it and not have it happen. And he said, "Well, I'll and again, the art of the deal. He's a master at this. He said, we'll do this, but in 2025, and seemed a long time off from that time when he signed it, 9 years later. He said 2025. What I would like to do is we'll just put in there a provision that it goes away, and it goes back to where it was before.
Yeah, I don't think he wanted to do that. I think that was the compromise it took to get it
Well,
passed.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it had to sunset.
Put it
I
out
think-
far enough that
Yeah, I
it's-
think initially he didn't want to. Yeah, you're right. But to get it passed, that was his give, which doesn't usually do a lot of giving. But anyway, in this case, he did, and so that is about, I don't, whenever you listen to this today, it's about 200 days away. We're going to face that
Expiration.
expiration, sunset. They call it the sunset of the this Tax Cut and Jobs Act. Well, he is now president again. We and I, whatever side you're on, that with Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, doesn't really matter. When Kamala Harris was running, she was adopting Elizabeth Warren's policies on generational wealth, kind of the AOC type generational, anti-generational wealth.
If the government can take it, they will.
Right. It's they're right. And in some foreign countries, that's the way it is. I mean, in France and England, there's
Spain.
a lot of, in Spain, yeah, there's a lot of that where they confiscate the wealth if they can. And there's some terms and whatnot along with that. But that's the idea. And now he's president again. Kamala didn't win, and there was a chance she could have. I think slim,
A lot of people thought she was going to. So
well, a lot of people voted for her. So we know that it wasn't just a one. It was a landslide, yes, but it was not a given, especially a year ago. Right now, right now, it was not a given. I don't even know. Did we even know if Kamala was running a year ago?
I think it was still Biden.
Yeah, still Biden. But regardless, we were going to see this expiration of the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. That would have been in place, and we can talk about that here in a second. But it didn't happen. So we are in the now, And the now is Trump is president. And he is pushing to have this big, beautiful bill, which scares me anyway. Anything that's big is a little scary because it,
I think that terrible abomination is maybe fitting too.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, it grabs a little thing from here, a little thing from there, and then it makes a big thing. But in our world, retirement planning, longevity planning, estate planning, philanthropic planning, it's going to have impact. This big, beautiful bill is. So, and it passed the House, then they had to go back for modification. It's now in the Senate. Today is, what's the date today? June 25th. It's supposed to be signed by law clear the House by July 4th. That's the deadline that President Trump has given the Senate. So to get through the Senate, it may happen. It may happen. They're going to rip some things away. We know that out of it. But let me just ask Rick, and then maybe Todd, you could respond to what impact do you see this big beautiful bill is going to have on estate planning? And you could even, roll into Todd's area a little bit on retirement planning, but in estate planning.
Sure. Well, two big things. One is it will just enhance stability. Planning is difficult when you don't know what the rules are or when the rules are going to change abruptly. So avoiding the sunset, having the basic laws of the Tax Cuts and Job Act continued, that's tremendously helpful. Then there's some specific things that we're going to see, and I'll mention just
So
a couple.
are you referencing the exclusion then?
Well, but the exclusion, but also the tax rates and the other, various features that we've been living under for the last, 8-9 years and are about to sunset. So just having it not sunset, that's helpful. But then a couple of very specific things before I talk about the exclusion. One is the bonus depreciation, which is the ability to depreciate rental properties and real estate, and it's the improvements that you actually depreciate. But the ability to rapidly depreciate that in 1 year has created an investment boom in real estate, for one thing, but also the ability to use that depreciation to offset other income, like maybe a Roth rollover or something like that. So that there's a kind of a tie into tax planning and investment strategies and your retirement plans, and then how that integrates into the estate plan. So that's pretty huge. A lot of people, in fact, from the lawyer's perspective, when we do an estate plan, we say, well, what do you got? More often than not, the biggest thing people have that this has the most equity in it is some piece of real estate, a home, or I've had this house that we bought, as kids, and then we turned it into a rental, and now that's their biggest piece of equity. So real estate is a big factor. The exclusion is also an issue. It's currently at the end of 2025, you're $12.9 million per person. So, roughly 27 million for a married couple. And it's indexed to inflation. That's going to bump to 15 million, and it's going to retain the inflation index. One of the things we've seen in decades past, in the past 3 or 4 decades we've been doing this, is that when they just set the number, this is the number, and then politicians have this interesting game they play where they devalue the currency, they print more money to cover the government spending, so inflation happens, and so you get this bracket creep where years ago when the exclusion was $600,000, we think, "Whoa, that's so much money," and then suddenly you go, "Whoa, everybody's got that. If you own a house and a car and have a little retirement plan, $600,000 is no big deal." Well, having it indexed to inflation is the most rational and intelligent plan we've ever had on the estate taxes. So just keeping the index to inflation, keeping it known. With estate planning, we have to be able to look out a long ways. We're not just planning this year's taxes, we're planning taxes in 20 years, in 50 years, in 100 years. And so having that exclusion at $15 million, what that means is most people aren't going to have a tax issue until, of course, inflation happens, which it will. But with the index, it's going to keep ahead of most people. So the number of people that actually have to be concerned about an estate tax is going to go down. And for those who do have,
well, in fact, they estimate that at 15 million, a married couple 30 million to pass to the next generation, it'll only impact 1,000 estates a year.
Yeah, that's
So-
there'd be that many that die.
That,
And,
that, that, yeah.
and for those estates, for those families, and we have a lot of clients in that category. That's kind of the focus of my personal practice. That there are things they can do and should do to grandfather that in. So the very large estates, that's one of the first things we'll do in 26, assuming the big beautiful bill passes and we get that bump, is we're going to take that exclusion. We're going to take the gift right now.
Yeah.
And we're going to use discounting and all
Yeah, and,
kinds
and, let,
of other
and let me
things.
just explain that to the listeners. Right now, we have the estate tax and the gift tax on an equal plane.
They're unified.
And yeah, and so it wasn't that way until 2012 is when it wasn't it 2012.
Yeah, I forget the year. And the proposal with the sunset was, in fact, the proposal of the person who's not the president was to disconnect them,
Right.
so that the only way you could get the exclusion was to die, which is not a very attractive tax planning strategy.
Right. So but now they're equal. So you can work with.
You can use the gift the exclusion while you're still alive. You don't have to wait
Yeah,
for
you
death.
don't have, and you don't have to just use the annual exclusion right now, which is $19,000
Well,
a person.
and if you get it out of the estate early, then the future appreciation and the future income accumulates outside the taxable estate where you're not going to have that nasty tax hit.
Well, and this is particularly helpful for those to keep that threshold high for those with smaller estates to help simplify their ability to pass on assets to the next generation without the substantial taxes. And for those with larger ones or ones that are expected to grow larger, to move things out of the taxable estate now, because it's not just where the estate is at the moment, it's where it is at the unknown point
Right.
when it transfers to another generation.
Kind of a correlated thing also. People who are doing asset protection often will use some of that exclusion to create structures. So there are partnerships and LLCs and other structures outside their taxable estate that give them asset protection, even if their estate's way below the 15 million.
Yeah.
So having that big exclusion opens up planning opportunities beyond just avoiding estate taxes. It helps with current tax planning. It helps with asset protection. It helps with the investment strategies.
It was interesting. I was at the Weiss. I was the speaker at the Weiss Investment Summit a couple of weeks ago in Boca Raton. A lot of wealth there, believe me. But at the summit, the big ticket was cryptocurrency, and they were all perplexed. By the way, my talk went extremely well to this audience that I hadn't spoken at ever before. And it was because of the wealth that they had appreciated and grown through crypto. And they're sitting on a mountain of money that's not really money, but it's value. It's assets.
Yeah, and that's an open question in the big beautiful bill. How is the tax treatment of the crypto going to change?
And it doesn't necessarily clarify the fact that currently the treatment is a little schizophrenic in that for tax purposes, crypto is often being treated as a cash equivalent,
Right.
but for gift or deduction purposes, it's being treated as an alternative asset, which is not helpful,
It's not.
to say the least.
Yeah.
It's a little confusing.
Yeah, it's a little confusing. It complicates the accounting and the reporting. It reduces the ability to put the crypto in an asset protection entity or other tax efficient vehicle, or to move out of that as an asset to diversify.
Can you use it in the?
Yeah, we see this often in the charitable planning
Sure.
because we do a lot with crypto, but it makes it so
Do
that
they get a tax deduction?
they get a tax deduction, but it's not a cash equivalent tax deduction. Currently, you can take a deduction on cash gifts up to 60% of adjusted gross income, but for non-cash gifts, it's limited to 30% of adjusted gross income. And with crypto, currently, because of the ambiguity, we have to get an independent valuation, even if there's a ready
Right.
market for it.
Right.
So this.
So do they give it a discount? Or
No, they don't typically give it a discount.
You
but
don't
it's
want a
an extra
discount
No,
for giving
cost.
it to charity. That's,
no.
Yeah,
I just
it's
wondered.
an extra cost.
Yeah,
It takes more work. It means that smaller charities need to work with a sponsoring or partner charity to accept it, because the administrative burden on both the charity and the donor is more complicated. So I don't the big beautiful bill doesn't currently address some of those issues, but I do hope that they are addressed as legislation moves
Hopefully.
forward, because that would free up those holding crypto to be able to make more strategic moves and use that capital in a wider fashion.
That I want to observe that Legacy Global's ability to work in the crypto space and navigate that sometimes tricky space is a unique thing. There are a few charities that can do that. There's more than one, but there's a few, but there's not a lot. A lot of charities that are just out of their league and don't know what to do with it,
Afraid
can't
of it,
handle it. And Legacy acts as a clearinghouse actually for other charities that want to receive this gift but don't have the back office to deal with the complexity and the nuances of it. So that's a fun
Well,
space.
it would have been fun for you to have gone there too. But
It
Weiss,
would have.
it was a big deal for them. But Todd, let me just ask this: you're right now one of the in the big beautiful bill. You know, we're going to see an extension of we believe of the tax brackets, the income tax brackets that we have right now. We're not. It's not going to. It's going to extend the estate tax credit exclusion, but it's also going to keep us in the same brackets that, or maybe even lower some of the brackets that we're in the income tax area. And one of the big fervors that has been going on especially when prior to the election, was that I've got to get my money converted to a Roth, my qualified money, my IRA money, my 401k money. I got to get it converted now to a Roth, or a Roth on steroids idea.
Yeah.
I got to do that. I've got to do that now before the election, because it could change. Well, now we have a promise in the big beautiful bill that the Tax Cut and Jobs Act brackets are going to go beyond. And so, what kind of window does that create on the Roth idea? Because I know you have a software package that you use to help people analyze the effectiveness of doing a Roth conversion now.
Yeah.
So tell me about that. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think historically, if you look at tax brackets, taxes are on sale, right? I mean, you could have over 400,000 income if you have a standard deduction, and you could still
And you're married.
and you're married and still be in the 24% tax bracket, which is insane. I mean, it's awesome. So if you are making $100,000 now income and you want to convert 324,000 actually is what you could do if you had the 30,000 standard deduction. You could take that and still be in the 24% tax bracket.
Yeah, never pay more than 24. Exactly.
It's a good time to make money.
And
it's a good time to have the tax realization event.
Yeah, and I think we were talking about how high the exclusion is. Yes, 15 million, 30 million for a couple. That's pretty high. Doesn't affect a lot of people, but there's a lot of people. We're finding a lot of clients, a lot of just engineers that set their money, or disciplined investors that have $4 or $5 million IRAs. That's a huge. If you compound that and let it just keep deferring, that's a huge tax bill at death, because the children are going to be having to pay tax on $5 million, $10 million IRAs,
And they have to pay it over 10 years.
They pay it over 10 years and there's no asset protection.
right?
It's a double whammy.
So you don't want to
It's
have
out there.
It's out there, and I've experienced this with the children of clients where they have a lawsuit or some unpleasant event in their life, and the creditors go grab the IRA money and take it, and the kid gets a tax bill. So it's a real risk.
Yeah. You do not want to have the plan to leave your IRA to your kids. I mean, give it to charity, or get it out of, start spending it now. You do not want, but it's surprising how many clients they're just been disciplined, and they are in that accumulation phase.
Take the R&Ds, buy life insurance, leave the IRA to charity.
Right.
Largely because of the risks involved.
Right. They just can't get out of that mindset of building and deferring.
Well, can you asset protect a Roth?
Roths and ERISA plans in general have certain asset protection on a federal level. Most states also give them some asset protection. So you can protect it during the owner's lifetime. It's the beneficiary IRA, whether it's a Roth or a traditional, that is unprotected. The beneficiaries lose that protection. So if the money's still in the IRA of any variety, and now it's not a owner IRA, it's not a spousal IRA, it's a beneficiary IRA. That beneficiary IRA does not have the protection.
So what
Creditors can
solution do
grab
you
it.
have for that?
So, well, a couple of solutions is if you follow what Todd's advice, get the money out of the IRA before you die. So my counsel to every client is have a plan to remove the money from your IRAs before you're dead. And that doesn't mean spend it. It doesn't mean waste it. And that can include Roth conversions. It can include taking your RMDs. It can include using the RMDs and other things to buy life insurance and other things to replace the asset. But get it out of the stinking IRA. If you're going to leave it to your kids, you can have it passed to a trust, and the trust can be the conduit through which the IRA passes, and the trust can give that protection. And by the way, the trust can manage contingencies. What if my child
And what do you
predeceases?
call that trust? What do you name? Is that your revocable dynasty trust?
Yeah, it can be. It
Or
can
an
be.
irrevocable.
It's a very specific trust.
Well, it's a very specific set of provisions in a trust. That trust can be your revocable trust, which becomes irrevocable when you die. It can be an irrevocable trust. So it's a body of provisions that
So
need to be in the
is
trust.
that explained in your book, Trust Issues?
Not in a technical fashion, but we talk about some of the things that people do to screw it up. So the technical thing, in fact, when we look at trusts, one of the things we look at is, does this trust manage retirement assets in a tax efficient manner and in a manner that's protected from the creditors and the beneficiaries? And some do and some don't. So it's very specific to the trust instrument. And if people are concerned about that, if they have an issue like
So I
that.
have a question for you, and then Todd finish it. We want Todd to finish his thought, but are you going to write? Have you written about this in Generational Wealth Strategies?
Oh yeah, oh yes, but I can write more about it. It's a topic that
And we will.
we will.
Well, it's an open sore. Believe me, it is something that, like Todd said, I don't think a day goes by. I know a day doesn't go by that we don't talk to somebody that has a sizable IRA. I mean, if you have an IRA, just forget Roth for a second. If you have an IRA of $4 million, and your husband and wife, and now you want to travel, you want to do stuff, you should never run out of money.
You can't run out of money.
Yeah.
You can try, but you will fail.
Yeah.
I've seen that order. People go, "I'm gonna spend it." Yeah, right.
Yeah.
They're not gonna spend it. They can't.
Well, I think another thing we're seeing is when they retire, the first few years, they're going on cruises and they're just, the go-go years, spending it, and they are ripping it down. But a lot of times they're working longer just because they can't retire when they thought they've got their business and they like doing what they're doing. And then they have those hard years, and then they have some health declines, and they're not spending in the slow-go years. They're not able to spend like they were, and that money just keeps growing, and the IRA just keeps building, and then they're in
Big
the
IRA.
And then the big assumption
the
that
no-go years.
I
Yeah.
think most people have, that the IRA will have the same treatment for their children as it does for them, is where you run into problems. So
Yeah.
being
I
aware.
Rules
I
change.
think they are getting more educated on the fact that the children, the Secure Act did get some good press. It's not, there's no press on it now, and the irony of it is that was passed in 2020, right? We're in 2025. The 10-year rule has not hit yet for anybody that died in 2020. That was
Right.
impacted.
Right.
So we've got these guys with these IRAs. The kids now have inherited these IRAs since 2020.
Right. No more stretch.
And no more stretch. And maybe they're taking something to pay off their mortgage, or they're taking some to buy a new car or whatever. And they pay taxes on it because you take it out of your IRA, your qualified account. You take $1 out to buy a candy bar, you pay taxes on that ordinary income taxes. And
Tax on
that's
candy.
the rule. And so now you take it out to pay off your mortgage, you're paying the ordinary taxes on it. But the 10-year rule has not finished. There hasn't been 10 years. And so what's going to happen is, David's,
You're going to prognosticate.
this is
Okay.
a prophetic promise.
Okay.
What is going to happen is that 10 years from 2020, so 2030, which
Okay.
we're now only 5 years away from.
We're on the
right?
doorstep.
We're on the doorstep. There's going to be a rude awakening, and they're going to say, "Holy crying out loud! Mom and Dad gave me $1 million and it's now worth 2 million, and I haven't paid any taxes on it all along the 10 years. I didn't do anything. I took out some, for this and that. I paid taxes on that, but it's worth 2 million today." Boom, that hits you.
Yeah.
And there's no escape. There's not going to be any place to go. You are totally, can I say this? You're totally screwed.
And I
Well-
think mom and dad are better educated, but the kids inheriting these are not.
No.
We've seen them say, "Oh, the IRA," and they take the money out and they blow it. And then there's the tax bill.
Well, yeah.
And it becomes a negative cycle. Oh, I took 200 out last year. Big tax bill. Well, let me take more out this year to pay the taxes. Well, then there's another
So
corresponding
let's go
tax
back.
bill.
Let's go back, Todd. So the Roth. Then what do you see?
I mean, yeah. So, a couple things I'm seeing is just as our clients go into the required minimum distribution phase of life, 73, they're having to start to take these distributions. It's very difficult. It's annoying for them. They're not used to having to do that. And so I spent a lot of time helping them calculate their distributions, what sources, and educating on, you can take it from this source, you can do an aggregate of sources, just educating. So there's a lot on that retirees have to deal with, just taking those distributions. That's number one. But yeah, as far as doing the Roth, the biggest thing is bracket management. And so we do want to be as smart as we can. And generally, when I run the software, the earlier you do the conversion, the better, because you're having that time of compounding tax free versus waiting. So
don't wait to 73 to be.
Yeah, I
forced
mean,
to
I've
take
had a
this.
lot of clients in 75 in the 80s having me do the Roth conversion analysis, and it's just not as impactful as if they did it when they were 70. So we want to do it
Or
59, really. I mean, you start when you're 59, start doing it. It's just going to be better. The younger you are, you can't do it before 59 because you have to pay the 10% tax penalty. But yeah, so earlier the better. And then be smart with other tax strategies, like Rick was saying, the depreciation on the real estate or other properties. We don't know what the tax is going to lead the new tax law. Also, you can use other strategies like oil and gas offsets. We have some energy drilling companies that will allow 90% deduction for intangible drilling costs. And I mean, that's so I want to have a future income with tax advantages. I could offset that. And maybe I do $600,000 worth of income. I offset that to my 400,000 to keeping it within the 24% bracket. And I'm using that. I'm still getting income as well. And
I think it's important to point out the importance of your software analysis. Sometimes people just say, "Oh, a Roth conversion must be a good idea. Let's rush in and do it," and they don't do the math.
Right.
Because it's not always a good idea for everyone, and it may or may not be a good idea depending on what other tax strategies they're using. So this doesn't just happen in isolation, and it has to be done deliberately and intentionally, and smart enough to know, okay, it was a good idea 7 years ago, but it's not a good idea today because I'm in a different place. Or it would be a good idea if I did these other three things, but I don't want to do those other three things, so then it's not a good idea.
It's a difficult solve because everyone's so different. Their portfolios, I can't.
Beneficiary.
I haven't been able to make a simple lump. Here's a formula that you can just apply. Everyone's so different with their goals or objectives. They want to do charitable contribution. They're not comfortable with.
They
oil
have
and
kids or
gas.
don't have kids.
They don't have assets. Yeah, I don't have kids. It's very different. This is but it's
and
very
so
important.
But math works.
Yes.
If you can look at the numbers and say, if you do, here's the number. If you don't, here's the number.
Okay, well, let me say one part of the Roth conversion that is uniform. Okay, a Roth, and I'll address our audience. A Roth is only worth what a Roth is worth.
That's right.
And so if I convert $100,000 into a Roth and I die the next day, my family gets.
100,000 net of the taxes.
Well, I'm just saying, net of taxes, they
Yeah.
converted.
Oh, okay.
They put it in and they invested it into a Schwab account. Okay. And they die the next day. Maybe they earned $1.50 in interest for that day. But they get 100,000.
Right.
If they took that $100,000 and they put it into what we call the wealth creation power play, which is explained in the bombshell battle plan
Bombshell battle plan.
report. And it's also, we've written about it in generational wealth strategies a couple of
Several
times.
times, yeah.
In fact, we did an issue. I think it was in the June issue. Give you an example. If a 55-year-old put a $250,000 in the wealth creation power play, a male, he would have $1.5 million in permanent tax-free life insurance that
Right.
goes to the family.
Right.
So 250 equals 1.5 million. Okay.
Yeah, it's crazy.
A 65-year-old male, 250 equals $1 million. I mean, it's and that way you can use that $1 million to pay the taxes on the other if you still have IRA. I mean, it's a heck of a strategy, and it's written in the newsletter. It's also in the bombshell battle plan.
So some subtleties on that though.
Yeah.
They're not doing a Roth conversion. It's an alternative to the Roth conversion.
Well, we call it the Roth on steroids.
Roth on
They're
steroids.
still taking money out of the IRA
Yes.
and moving it to something that's tax advantage.
Tax free.
Yeah.
And
Well, they have to pay taxes when they convert.
and sitting on the money that comes out of the IRA, they pay
Right.
taxes on that income. But sitting in the lawyer's chair, I don't manage money. But we do see the consequences of the taxes and what is the net to the family. My goodness, this tax-free money in a dynasty trust is one of the most awesome things ever, because the kids, when they go, oh, what do we have? Oh, mom and dad had a house and they had all these different things. And when they look at all the things that are in the bundle of inherited property, the coolest one that they're happiest about is that money that's both income tax free and estate tax free and protected from creditors and from in-laws and spouses and lawsuits and medical disasters.
So, Melody, tell us a little bit about charitable remainder trust and how they can not only be a part of estate planning while we're alive and tax planning significantly in income planning. Tell us the impact on these very important, highly useful vehicles that I think are underused. I really do in estate planning, and if people are afraid a lot of times of giving away, but they're getting so much in return, and they're really not giving anything away. So it's a unique vehicle for estate planning and retirement planning, income retirement planning. So tell us a little bit about how that works.
Yeah, well, a charitable remainder trust, often commonly referred to as a CRT, is a type of split interest gift. So you're making a partial gift to charity, but you're keeping part of the economic benefit. And there's an infinite number of different ways you can structure these. A charitable remainder trust uses a trust as an entity or vehicle to do that. And again, lots of variation on what those look like, but the most common setup is where you gift an asset to a charitable remainder trust and you keep the income off of that asset for life. So it provides really stable retirement income. The assets within the charitable remainder trust grow tax-free, so it changes what you can do on the investment portfolio. And when you die, the remainder of whatever's in the charitable remainder trust goes to the charity of your choice or charities. And part of what's really, really awesome about this is you can get income off of the entire gift amount, but the gift doesn't actually move until your death. And yet you get an immediate tax deduction. It's not a dollar for dollar one because you're retaining that right to lifetime income, but you can get an immediate tax
And the older
deduction.
you are, the larger the deduction.
Yeah. And charitable remainder trusts are usually not annuitized, so they're distributing income based on a percentage. So when we set them up, we're going to look at a minimum of 5% as a distribution percentage for income. Sometimes that is a net income distribution where we're distributing only earnings from the trust and preserving the corpus or principal. Sometimes it's a straight percentage distribution, which means that you're going to get a distribution every year, but it can impact the principal in bad market years. So there's pros and cons both ways. But again, you get an immediate tax deduction. The gift doesn't actually go to charity until you're dead, and you get earnings off of the gift during your lifetime. So these are particularly good for several different scenarios. One, if you've taken care of your children, or if you don't have children to leave an estate to, they simplify the estate plan pretty significantly. It cuts down the compliance costs. It cuts down how much you're going to update it with an attorney. There is an annual return, but it's a really effective vehicle.
Well, you get the tax deduction while you're alive instead of when you're dead, which is way better.
Yeah, it's not much use to you when you're dead. So let's use that now. It works really well with Roth or other IRA conversions and distributions, in that if the math's going to be a little different for every person, but if you take a distribution from a standard IRA and it's taxable, but you roll that into a charitable remainder trust, then the deduction from rolling it into the charitable remainder trust can offset a significant portion of the taxation on taking funds out of the IRA. And you still get the income. And you get the income off of the full amount that's going to be invested and grow tax
Let
free.
me add this to the income is, if you're married, goes to for life for both.
It can, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
So we're often
I
doing
usually
this.
set it up that way.
Yeah, with married couples, we're usually going to put both spouses on. It's a great way to make sure that the surviving spouse keeps getting income, and it doesn't reduce with the death of the first spouse.
Right.
The surviving spouse gets the full income benefits off of the full amount. And even for those with children, this is often a really, really good tool as part of a larger estate plan, because you can roll over an overfunded RIA, minimize this with putting it in a charitable remainder trust, which instead of being an ERISA or government structured retirement plan, it's essentially a private retirement plan with tax-free growth within it. And you can still use those distributions for your lifestyle. You can use those distributions to purchase life insurance or other financial products that replace the asset in the estate.
And let me add to that though too, because I think it's important. You can take some of the proceeds that you get from the charitable remainder trust, from the income, and you can buy a life insurance policy that replaces the asset that you gift eventually to charity.
Yes.
And by the way,
because your income is greater, you can afford that. It doesn't impair your lifestyle.
Right. And the kids now get a tax-free asset, which is the life insurance. And so
if you structure this, some people we work with structure it so that the charitable remainder trust immediately gets dispersed to an operating charity, so it can benefit their church or the local school or the humanitarian or environmental group that they're interested in. Many others, though, will put it in a donor advised fund.
I love that.
Or other vehicles that gives them the ability to, without changing the charitable remainder trust agreement and paying a lawyer to do this, they can update who the charitable beneficiaries are. Or
very flexible.
They can create a charitable endowment that their children and grandchildren can be involved in. So the children both get the tax-free life insurance, which they're going to like a lot more than an IRA that's messy to deal with. And they now have a family charitable fund or account that can support ongoing philanthropic endeavors for the family in perpetuity.
So I want to briefly mention a variation on this. It's really cool for families where there's no grandchildren. So we've seen situations, and I've actually done this many times, where mommy and daddy leave their money to separate CRTs for each of their children and their spouses. So the children and there's no grandkids. So the children and their spouses get this tax advantaged, asset protected income. The principal's totally protected. Every year their income goes up because the distributions are less than the net earnings. So their income has a built-in inflation rider. And then it doesn't go to charity until the generation 2 has passed away. And then it goes to the charities that, through a donor advised fund or other device like that, mom and dad picked during their lifetime. So it's a way of guaranteeing income for that generation 2 without making the assets available for their creditors and without giving them the ability to screw themselves up.
Yeah, it protects an ongoing lifetime income stream for the spouse or child with a disability, with a addiction issue,
Or
with
just-
cognitive issues.
Yeah.
I
Or
mean,
just spending issues.
yeah, or spending issues.
Yeah.
It protects it from
Now,
from
have you
a
written about
potential
this?
angry
Have you
ex.
written about this in?
I've written
Jen?
about them a few times, but there's so many different ways that we can apply them. They're vastly underused.
But that's
It-
primarily the focus of your column, isn't it?
It's one of the big things that I talk about a lot, because they are one of the most flexible vehicles. Because again, we're talking about setting up a trust where we can, within the limits of the law, have a very, very high amount of flexibility in how we're structuring these on an individual basis to work for each family, each couple, each group, to maximize both the tax savings, make the compliance as easy as possible. This is one of the simplest ways you can do asset protection. It removes the asset for Medicaid planning, and
It's
and
true.
You don't own it, so
yeah, you don't
your
own it.
creditors can't take it from you. Your income stream is protected.
The income, yeah, wouldn't count. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So it solves a lot of fundamental issues in one of the simplest and easiest methods when done right. Now, I have seen a lot of them done wrong. I work with some people who have had experiences where they set up a charitable remainder trust with a university or a charity that then
Hijacks.
hijacked it
Yeah.
and said, we're doing it the way we think we should do it. So it is important to note that these are wonderful, amazing vehicles when done right, but that takes looking at the individual situation, similar to what Todd does with very detailed financial analysis on the tax side, to say, let's make sure that the trust instrument is going to meet all of the needs of the family long term. But at the end of the day, they are one of the best ways to plan.
So the free one that you get from the charity, this is why it's dangerous. The charity will make themselves the trustee,
Mhm.
and they will make investments that cause the principal to grow and minimize the income. So the beneficiary goes, wait, I thought this was going to pay for my retirement. And the charity trustee says, yeah, well, we're growing the income because we want to maximize what we get when you die. So there's some things to not do that can end up
Well,
derailing.
I don't like the idea of having Schwab do it for me or Fidelity, because they call the investment shots the whole
Yeah.
time, and I don't like that.
My
at all.
favorite approach, and you're going to pay to set it up right, but it's worth every penny long term, is to have the family or the donor or whoever's the beneficiary be involved in determining the investment approach, because that's the thing that most determines the risk of income fluctuations, and it's what impacts those distributions. And for the family, we're looking at, are these distributions going to be what the family needs long term, and can we utilize that charitable deduction to offset other tax planning that they're
Which
doing?
kind of ties into Todd's world of safe money investing, because at some point you have to, as Skousen says, you got to take some chips off the table. You got
Sure.
to take some
Yeah.
risk off the table, and one of the biggest risks that I see that a lot of people forget about is longevity risk. And I want Todd just to spend a second on longevity risk and why that is such a big part of estate planning today, or retirement planning too. Retirement planning and estate planning today. I think it's the biggest thing going right now.
So I'm sorry. I think this is kind of funny. The good news is you didn't die. The bad news is you didn't
You
die.
didn't die. Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's like, hey, you made it to 99, great. But yeah, the longer you stay on this earth, the more opportunity for risk to come in and to wipe out your portfolio. You have to have, the longer you are from your retirement, the longer we have to have those funds stretched. And to last, the more opportunity there is for long-term care events, for medical, health crisis, health issues.
Well, in fact, statistics say that if you're 65, 72% will have a long-term care event.
Yeah.
So that's
pretty high risk.
That's
If you knew that
3/4.
there was that percentage of you're going to die in a car accident if you drive from here to home, you would maybe reconsider driving.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah. Anyway.
So yeah, there's just more, for market risk, to be retiring during a big collapse in the market could happen. There's black swans, things. So yeah, there's the longer you live, the more opportunity there is for risk, so that you have to have more protection. And so yeah, if you're not in great health and you're 70 and you're gonna pass when you're 72, it's probably not as tough to plan as if you're gonna be living to 90.
Though I will say, especially with those leaving legacy gifts to charity, we see a surprising number of times where the spouse who had the medical issues outlives their perfectly healthy spouse by decades. So while you can look at some of those risks, make sure you're going to be okay either way.
And medical science, and case in point, myself, medical science has advanced so far. This genetic testing that they have now for cancer, it narrows down exactly where it is, what treatment you should get, pinpoints it, and eradicates it. It's pretty cool the way they.
And the good news is you didn't die.
Yes. And you didn't die. Yeah, you didn't die, and you're still around. And so, but we've written. Todd and I wrote a report called Leverage Care Solutions, and it talks about the long-term care risk that is part of longevity. It's the number one longevity risk is long-term care. You're going to have that, and it's going to wipe out your assets if you have a long-term care event. And there's so many cool strategies today that you can implement that are tax-free, income tax-free strategies that will pay for your care. And you take $1, you transfer it to your right pocket, and it's now worth $3.
Yeah, there's
minimum.
There's some phenomenal opportunities right now there's a very competitive product because interest rates are up, so we're able to get some great leverage. Some cases, it depends on also the situation, but like a 55-year-old female can probably get 5 times leverage for life insurance long-term care combo. A male 65 can get 10 times for long-term care. So we're finding that. So if you're a male, you're going to be able to get.
So you put $1 in, you get $10.
Yeah. So if you're a male, you're going to get more leverage on the long-term care because men don't need long-term care as frequently as women. And
that's because they die.
It's right. They don't last. And then females, they're going to get better leverage on the life insurance because they live longer, so their mortality costs. So we will run those numbers and see how it fits because everyone's got different goals. But one thing I want to say, like the biggest issue I see with our clients is just the ability to get these types of policies. You have to be healthy. And so it seems like a lot of our clients don't think about it until they have some little hiccup on their health. Or maybe they've had a friend or somebody that's had a stroke or something, but it happens. We have had a lot of, our clients are aging now, so we've had a lot of these issues and seen how the long-term care is helping them. And we get more thanks especially for the long-term care from the family members than any other thing that we advise.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to share, in this last week, I have a client situation where the husband is 5 years older than his wife. We talked about long-term care multiple times in the past 35 years that I've represented them. And it's always been, well, she's younger, she's always healthy, he's going to go first. We don't need long-term care.
She's going to take care of me.
Yeah, well, she had a medical event.
Oh, she had.
And he's now in his late 70s, and he's caring for her, and it's chewing their estate up like crazy. So the discussion we had just a few days ago was, what do I do when I run out of money?
Yeah.
Because it looks like it's likely to happen.
Here's another very huge part of this long-term care. Again, 72%. Females, it's 80% will have a long-term care if they're over 65. So it's not may happen. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's statistically it's going to happen. What happens in your case that you're talking about? So perfect example. That husband's taking care of her, and he does that because he loves her. He wants to be with her. But what does that do to him physically? What does that do to him mentally?
We had that discussion.
Does he get to go on trips? Can he go fishing with the guys?
Yeah.
Can he go play golf? I mean, it ties you.
The burden on the caregiver is huge.
Let me just comment. I don't think this applies just to those in the later stages of life. I've personally had experiences where for extended periods, I have been in a position where long-term care more than 12 months was needed, and that's a significant burden, even if it's a temporary situation for a younger couple. So even those
Point.
in their
Youth.
comparative youth should probably be aware that the unexpected can occur, and hopefully you can recover from it. But even if you're looking at a 6-month period where either you, or if you're on your own, or a spouse, or yourself in a relationship is either needing to receive care or providing care, that can throw your career off track, that can devastate the family, and being able to have a resource to sustain even a younger family through a period that hopefully you recover from is pretty critical.
Well, and and the money coming from these new, uh, we call them leverage care solutions. The money that's coming to help take care of you is tax free.
Right.
So
Which is pretty cool.
It's a win-win.
Well, and some of these newer policies have critical illness riders that you can access the death benefit early for those kind of
Yeah.
events. You can have, and they also have the cash value, but there's a lot of ways to access money that wasn't in the traditional life insurance wasn't available. They've really
Yeah.
Or even
My
That's
policy.
where-
traditional long-term
Yeah.
care. It's a new thing that's
Yeah.
been modified to address.
So if
Even
you-
for those who probably hopefully won't need it for decades, these are really valuable
yeah.
protections.
And a lot of
to
them come,
families.
these riders or features come free with the newer policies.
Mhm.
So if you haven't looked at the newer policies, there's some really cool benefits.
We
like
have
that.
we have a client right now that has an older policy, quite a bit of cash in it. Doesn't need the cash. We're going to take the cash. We're going to roll it. He's still healthy, thank goodness. We're going to take the cash. We're going to roll it 1035 tax-free exchange into a new policy, one of these newer policies with the long-term care.
with the enhanced benefits. That's
And,
awesome.
it's a and he's so excited
So
about it.
he
that
retains all the death benefit and everything else he had.
well, death benefit's greater now. It's 3 times what it
Wow.
was before.
Wow.
So it was a net death benefit of 300,000. Now he gets almost $1 million of death
Wow.
benefit and long-term care.
And the
So-
long-term care. Wow.
But anyway, let's move to we got to close this out here sometime. So, and we could talk all day. We love
We
each
could.
other. We work very well together. We
And we
write
have
a
more
good.
stories than we have time.
I think the Generational Wealth Strategies newsletter is one of the best ones out there. Not because I'm part of it, but it's just so packed full of info. Todd was reading. You were kind of doing a read of a bunch of them the other day, and you go, "Holy moly! There's so much
I can't
information
believe we
here."
wrote this.
But you've written a book,
Yeah.
and I want to talk about trust issues. This book that you've written, I actually got to read it. I had a little event of myself, and so while I was having my event, I got to have some time, and I was able.
Yes, and
to
thank you.
read the
Your
book.
feedback helped improve the final version.
Well, thank you. I took it to heart because I know how much information. I've been to conferences with you. We've been, and I've listened to you speak hundreds of times, and always engaging. But this book is good. It is really. It's important. If you're doing estate planning, if you have a plan that's 5 years old, and you haven't updated it, this book is good. It's a must read, and I really think that trust issues is. I think it's going to be a bestseller. I really do. I don't know how you're going to handle all your business that you get.
Well,
from it, but,
yeah,
it's
that would be
terrific.
sweet. But I'm more than selling books. I'm more concerned about addressing the real issues that I see people
Well,
experiencing.
and I can see that. I see that in the book. You wrote this book because of that, because you're concerned.
Well, a lot of times people think they see all these issues related to generational wealth, moving money from one generation to the next, and they think their trust is going to fix those problems. And what happens with most trusts is they make the problems worse, not better. They fuel the fire of the destruction of wealth within 1 or 2 generations instead of protecting the wealth and instead of protecting the people. So we try to tackle that. Inherited wealth, when people get the money and they get their hands on the money, I got it, it's mine. Inherited wealth has a shelf life, a half-life of approximately 8 years. Every 8 years, on the macro level, obviously there are individual exceptions, but on the macro level, every 8 years, inherited wealth goes in half. So by the time we hit year 2024, which is a generational point, it's gone. So only 9% of inherited wealth makes it generation 3, which is why 95% of all one percenters, of all the 1% wealthy, 95% of them are first generation wealth. We don't have all these rich second and third generation wealth people because the money's gone. And by the way, being a trust baby is not a compliment. It's an insult. And
It's
so
true.
how do we disrupt that cycle? And so the trust issues we look at, this is what's happening, this is why it's happening, and here are some practical solutions to prevent it from happening, and hopefully turn our wealth into something that actually is good for the future generations and not destructive.
Well, good. Well, let's kind of close it out today. We appreciate you listening, and if you want to get any of our books, Todd's and my books, you just go to shop.epmez.com. So EPMEZ stands for Estate Planning Made Easy. We've tried to make it as easy as possible. We're the quarterbacks of the team, and we'll quarterback you through the estate planning and retirement planning process. But more importantly, through the website, the shop.epmez.com, we will have trust issues when it's ready to go out. We'll have that as a book that you can buy. You can also, of course, Rick, you're gonna have
It's going to be on our website with
on your website.
durfeelawgroup.com. It's going to be on Amazon. It's going to be available through a variety of
Yeah.
places.
So I might even get you a discount if you
Maybe.
do through.
Maybe. We're negotiating that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've been negotiating for a long time. In conclusion, let me just ask each of you, what advice can you give us? The big beautiful bill is probably going to pass in some. It's going to pass in some form. What advice, just with that knowledge that it's going to go, and we'll start with you, Rick, and with Todd, well, and with me, and we'll go around. And what advice can you give our viewers?
So, well, I'm going to say be intentional, be deliberate. So often we see people just go with the flow, whatever. I'm going to have my down the corner tax person prepare my taxes. I'm going to, I've got a trust I did again 17 years ago. It's in the notebook in the closet. I'm fine. I'm good. And so don't do that. Be intentional. Pull out your stuff. Look at your planning. I as an example, having a business entity is crucial if you want to minimize your taxes and if you're going to plan your estate intelligently. A lot of times people go, wait, isn't the trust enough? And that's one of the issues with trust issues is no, a trust is not enough. There has to be more. So be intentional, be deliberate, and get good counsel. And I'm going to say, subscribe to this Generational Wealth newsletter. It's a good thing. We're going to put a link in the video where you can go to that and subscribe to it. So
I'm going to put a QR code in.
Yeah, I kind of, together with that, the decision window for people to do the planning that all of us here do, we've done tons of research on this. It's about 16 months. So it's not people are going to go, oh, I should do this. And then they make a phone call and it's done in the next 30 minutes. You have to get educated. You have to study. So read the newsletter, read the book, go to our websites. Both of our websites have a great deal of material. All of our websites have a great deal of material on there that people should get smart and learn what they're doing, so that when they do meet with an advisor, they've got the right questions. They know what the issues are, and they'll be prepared to address them.
Yeah, read all my books. So she had read the 10 Most Common. She started with that.
Yeah.
Then she went to the Family Bank Strategy. She read that. It was like talking to an A+ student that comes up to you and says, Rick, Melody, Todd, David, I learned so much in this class and I loved it and I'm ready to take action.
Isn't that fun?
It is
It's
so,
really
so
fun
cool.
when you talk with an informed client.
It was, and she
Yeah.
did her homework, and it was It was so cool. It was one of my
Yeah.
my favorite discussions that I've had in years, actually, because she just was on. She had her game. That's cool. Great advice, Rick. Melody.
You know, going off of what Rick said, regardless of which political parties in power, the politicians set the rules on taxes, what the rules are now. Hopefully, we do end up with some stability, but the rules will change
Yeah.
as
And
things
let
go
me just add
forward.
right here, with taxation, nothing is permanent.
Yeah.
So don't buy that.
Yeah.
I'm going to permanently.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
I,
permanent.
you know,
Yeah, right.
I'm going to permanently
And
change.
that goes to the point I was going to make here in terms of it's really important to have a plan and to have it implemented and integrated into everything that you're doing now. But be aware that no plan is perfect or static, and you want to continue to be involved and update the plan and make sure that the people involved in your plan are prepared. Because if you have a plan, you prepare the people, and you make sure that the plan evolves with changes in your own personal circumstances and with changes in the law, whatever they are, as politics and things change and economies evolve, you're going to do all right.
Good. Good advice. Todd.
Yeah, I would say kind of well dovetailing on both of you. Like Rick was saying, we see from our wealthy clients, they take action. They read. They they're up on. It's important to them to know what's happening with their money, and they're not just passively just sitting there and just letting life go by. But they're taking action. They're learning, and then they're taking action with their plan. They're actually doing things and not waiting. And so that's the biggest thing is don't wait for tax laws to change or don't wait for some event in the office or what's happening, but jump on it now while you can, while you still have your faculties. Who knows what's going to happen in life?
Mm.
So that, and off of what Melody's saying is communication with your family is the biggest thing. I mean, I love our favorite is when there's multi-generations involved. Our best clients that we've had for the estate planning is when there's multi-generations, even the grandkids know what's going on, and it goes down and just that wealth perpetuates. And we've seen it over the years now. I've had 30, 40 years. You've had, what, 50 years of seeing
53
these
years.
generations go and how the smart ones, the ones that were really involved, how that wealth is passed to the next generation and how great it's been for their plans because they actually took the action way back 30, 40 years ago. Versus those that don't do anything and they just let kind of life just go by.
Yeah.
So take action.
Well, listen, it's been wonderful to be with you guys and to share these ideas with our listeners today. And I honestly hope that and it's a prayer of mine. It's a sincere prayer of mine that um, that you get your plans in place, that you get something affirmatively done for your family. The worst thing that you can do is die without a plan, a logical plan, because at a time when you want to create and have relationships build, and you want to have harmony and unity in your family and love at that time, you don't want to create confusion, animosity, hate. Those are things that you don't want to do. I can't imagine anybody planning. I mean, maybe uh, Cruella de Vil or something. Some evil person would want to do that, but you'd have to be pretty dang mean to want to create hate. At a time when you should be bonding your family
And yet, over
creating love.
50% of estates end up in conflict.
Right.
Wow.
More than
that's
half.
and there is no need to do that.
That's right.
There's no need if you just spend some time. We're planning a family vacation right now. We've been planning this vacation for over a year now, and it is a job. It is. It's going to be intense, but it's a job. And in fact, I'm trying to tie one little part of it together right now, and that little part that we're doing is a job, but it is not. I mean, planning your estate doesn't have to be that laborious of a task. I mean, Yeah, honestly, you can get this and like Rick says, get educated first, understand what it is that you want out of this, and then contact somebody that knows what they're doing. We can be your quarterback. We work all over the country. We can get you to the right people and get your plan in place strategically and effectively for multi generations. I am so anti the these folks that want wealth to stop, with you. Federal confiscation of wealth is just not a good strategy, and so get a plan in place and make it effective for you. And read our newsletter, Generational Wealth Strategies. I honestly believe that is a ticket. Once you subscribe to it, by the way, you get all our back issues.
Yeah.
And we've been doing this
Yeah.
now. We're on our second year.
Yeah.
So
There's a lot of good material in there.
yeah, a lot of tons of good stuff. So anyway,
And hundreds of hours of professional time digging through the law, digging through the issues, and coming up with solid recommendations.
yeah, no, it's a good thing. So anyway, thank you for listening, and let us know how we can help. Take care.